I'm so excited because today we have with us Mackenzie Foley, who is the new organizer. Well, actually, you've been here for
About a year.
about a year. So the no longer brand new organizer for rural organizing. I met Mackenzie through some campaigns last fall. I live in a rural area outside Duluth. And so I was so excited when she said yes, when we were asked her if she could show up today and talk a little bit about some of their new initiatives. And she has a lot to share with us. So I'll invite Mackenzie up to use the mic, and we are going to be doing some slightly more interactive things where you're at some point be thinking about whether you are willing to help be a note taker. I might also be able to help when we get to that part. But yeah, I'm so pleased to have you here. Thank you, Mackenzie.
Thanks, Meredith. Hi, everyone. Good morning. I am really excited and really appreciate being here today. I am actually going to step down my notes for a second. Oh, yes. Oh, I have to stand back here. There you go. Perfect. Morning, everyone online. I'll talk just a little bit about myself, because as we were talking, getting ready for this morning, there were some good questions about like, who am I and where, like, what is the context I'm coming from? So I'll start with who I am. My name is Mackenzie Foley. Pronouns are she, her. And I grew up in this area. I was born in Duluth at St. Mary's Hospital. Actually spent the first year of my life in South Range, Wisconsin. Ended up growing up in the Hermantown area and graduated from ESCO. And at the age of 18, I could not wait to leave this area. Now, it's not just because it is the frigid Northland, right? Like, I genuinely felt like there was no opportunities for me in northern Minnesota at the age of 18. And I knew if I wanted to go out and live life, like, I could not stay here, I had to leave. And so my goal at 18 was, how far away can I get and still get in-state tuition? And that was my priority. And the answer to that was Madison, Wisconsin. So I did my undergrad at Madison. It was a great experience for me. I was that like small town kid that started like walking down like the roads at Madison saying hi to everyone, because that's what you do in small town northern Minnesota. You greet everyone you walk by. And I was very confused when people didn't reciprocate a hello to me. It's like, what is happening here? Is this what it means to live in the city? And still to this day, I live on a little dirt road between Duluth and Two Harbors. And my husband's like, Mackenzie, you can't do the northern Minnesotan thing and say hi to every person we walk by on our little dirt road. But I think you can't take the northern Minnesotan out of the person, and that is just a part of who I am. From there, I graduated with a degree in community and nonprofit leadership, because so much of what was driving me at that time was, how do you make the world a better place? And that was being driven from part of my own experience growing up. In the downturn of 2008, it hit my family at a really vulnerable time. And we lost everything. We went through bankruptcy, we lost our house, and I should rephrase that, our house was taken from us. We just went through this really, really tough time financially. And so the fact that I was able to go to college, right, when I say the nearest place with in-state tuition, like, it was really driven by a financial reality where I wasn't sure if I could go to college. I wasn't sure if I could financially make that happen. But thankfully, through Pell Grants and through financial aid and scholarships, I was able to go and make it happen. And don't get me wrong, I was working multiple jobs and donating plasma on the side to make sure I could afford rent, but was able to make it happen. And it changed the course of my life, right? So after college, I was able to join the Peace Corps. I spent 3 years in Botswana working on HIV-related initiatives. Ended up coming back to northern Minnesota, where, because that's where my now spouse was living at the time, and I fell in love with it here. Like, I did not appreciate northern Minnesota nearly enough, growing up here. but fell in love with it. And it took us a couple years, my spouse and I decide like, this is where we want to live. And I was like, well, here's the thing. If I'm going to live here, I'm going to build a community that I want to be a part of. So that 18-year-old B didn't have to feel like I had to leave in order to find life, right? Like I want to build the community that I want to live in. And that's what I get to do every single day as a community organizer. I get to work with people such as yourselves. I'm working a lot with parents with young children right now around childcare access and affordability, because I want a place where people can belong, a community where we acknowledge the inherent worth and dignity of every single person, and where we have the things that we need, right? Like childcare or healthcare or housing. And so that's a lot of my story and what brought me to community organizing. I'm with an organization called Isaiah, or Faith in Minnesota, and we are a statewide power building organization. There are many different, we like to say there's many different rooms in the house. And the room I'm a part of was called the Rural Organizing Project. We're probably going to go through a little bit of a rebrand. What I like to say is I organize in northern Minnesota. So I've organized in Duluth, in the townships outside of Duluth, up to International Falls, Ely, the Range. I would say northeastern Minnesota is where I've done the bulk of my organizing. And I get to spend time creating the change we want to see. And so that's what I really want to spend some time digging into today. I want to talk about what's happening to us right now. I want to talk about what matters to each of us. What are our values? What is our northern Minnesotan agenda? Like, what do we want? When I talk about the community that I want, I'm curious about what you all want as well. And then I want to talk about actions to actually build power. And I like to talk about power as something that is values neutral. Power is the ability to make change. It's not good, it's not bad. You can either make the change or you can't. But in order to build the power necessary to make the changes that we want to see, so we can live in the community we want to live in. Does this sound good to everyone right now? Any questions right off the bat before we dive in? Perfect. There'll be plenty of time for questions. So I want to talk a little bit about what's happening. And I'm sure this will resonate. I know Sally and Will, we were talking about this right before like we launched into this. But nationally, there are some attempts right now to take away our civil rights, take away our social safety nets, and our resources. And the social safety net cuts really are a big concern to me, because it's a wealth transfer from people, right? From what's good for us to provide tax cuts for very wealthy individuals and corporations. And what I was just at a meeting last week where they were talking about what these cuts would do. And one thing that really stood out to me was some of these cuts around Medicaid. Did you know that 1 in 4 individuals in northern Minnesota use Medicaid as their primary form of accessing healthcare? Who knew that? I didn't know this. And I was like, holy cow, like that is concerning. It's super concerning for folks in our area. And those Medicaid, individuals who access Medicaid are often children, elders, people living with disabilities, or low-income families. Now, there's a bunch of other pieces to these federal cuts that are of concern. One for me is the CCDBG funds, which help fund CCAP, which is how lower income families or families with certain criteria can access childcare. And I've been working primarily on childcare since January. How many of you knew that 3 centers in the Duluth area shut down last year? Yeah. So in the Duluth area, and Duluth and surrounding area, If you are pregnant, the soonest infant slot available is the end of 2026. It's like November of 2026. Now, for those of you who know, the math doesn't add up for that, right? Like you can't have an infant slot when the nearest opening is in November of 2026. Like the math doesn't math there, folks. Like that doesn't work. One of my best friends has 3 kiddos under the age of 3. And the highest budget line item that they have is childcare. It is more than their mortgage, significantly more than their mortgage. And so our childcare in this area is hard to find. It is not affordable. And it's making parents make these really, really difficult decisions about how they meet their child's needs for care. Do I have to drop out of the workforce, even though that's not what I want to do? Do I have to put them in a situation that I wouldn't like to because I don't necessarily trust the provider or I didn't think is as high quality as I would like, but I have no other choice? Like there's really, really hard decisions being made around childcare in this community. And so I've been organizing with parents to try to shift that. But I'm curious to hear from you all, right? Like, are some of these concerns nationally or locally resonating with you? And what matters to you? Like, what concerns do you have? So take a couple minutes, and then we're going to take a couple minutes here, turn to the person next to you and talk about, like, what's keeping you up at night? What concerns do you have? And if you're online, you're welcome to use the chat at all. I know Meredith will be there too, and we'll talk about it in a second. So take a couple minutes, chat with the person next to you, and then we'll come back together.
Sometimes I try to have an abundance mindset.
It is always enough time. It's always enough time for the right conversations.
So, yeah.
All right, folks, let's take about 1 more minute and really dive in. What are like the stakes for you? Like you and the people you care about personally. 1 more minute and then we'll bring it back in. Okay, I'll go. I'm sorry. I said take 1 more minute. Oh, and really think about like what's at stake for you? You personally. Oh, you people you care about. Oh, I thought you were gonna say I care about. Yeah. Right.
Well, I don't know.
You and.
Oh, you.
Why, oh, you.
Why identify? Also just, so that people in the online, audience can also hear, we'll pass the mic around here, they're going to be asking for sharing.
Yeah. All right. What came up for you all? Pass the mic. Yeah.
Okay, we started out with climate,
Hmm.
healthcare, and housing, and gun control. Yeah, I know Chance.
And I'm gonna actually tell me why. Like, what's at stake for you for those things?
Well, climate, I have family living in Japan. I'm more internationally focused on things because of that. Healthcare, I see it all around me because of where I live. Gun control has been forever. I should just make a little comment. I grew up in a home with a father as a physician who was very, very interested in teaching kids how to use guns properly. Therefore, and also a lifelong member of the. So this is, I'm off the map in many ways.
You're right on the map where you should be. Yeah.
I was in Jan's group, so those are my groups, but I think healthcare is my priority. I have the good fortune to have tried Care for Life, and I think everybody should have that kind of coverage because it's possible.
What else came up for folks?
Well, we were just talking about childcare. Like you mentioned in the 3 childcares that one of the larger ones is along with a friend of mine who we talked for years about heavy the paperwork was getting for them, and they were and their family, right? And they had employees. It was pretty big, and they started out with 2, and one in East End, and then the larger one on First Street, west of Sabi. And he goes on and on many times about the issues of it, and he says a lot of it's code, a lot of it's just more than we can do, and the cost, licensing costs, healthcare insurance for the employees. And then he said, well, I asked, well, you gonna sell it to the business? A new owner would have to bring it up to code. And he says that makes it not tough, it makes it impossible for childcare. So what then? Period.
Yeah. What else came up?
Well, we were talking about the childcare. For me, if we don't solve the climate crisis, we aren't going to have a world to worry about any of this other stuff in. So I think that is a huge, huge, and also healthcare, I can't understand why we can't all have healthcare. And it just seems like we talk and talk and talk and talk about it. And we have people who are, have no healthcare. It's not right.
I just want to add that the fact that we have climate, housing, healthcare, childcare, you can go on with 10 other things, major things that are concerns right now. It's hard for me to focus. Okay, what do I focus on?
Yes.
Yeah, that decision process is really hard. What came up for y'all in the back?
My concern, it's on health. My concern is the irrationality of our national setting. The complete irrationality, and refusal to address the issues that need to be addressed. And I think that is probably the biggest danger.
What do you think is dangerous about it?
Pardon?
What do you think is dangerous about it?
What do I think, what?
Is dangerous about it?
The danger?
Yeah.
The country's falling apart, period. And, so what I think is that the state, some of the states are solid enough to hold it together and to take those actions that such as universal healthcare, I don't think, such as guaranteed housing. Um, I think housing, in some ways should be addressed. Nevertheless, there's always going to be a homeless population because there is that population who chooses to be homeless. So I think we need to set up some special areas, designated areas that are protected, that such people can move into and engage, such as been tried at a couple of churches with parking cars and allowing people to sleep in their cars there.
You went with this. Like, what is the vision? What is the solution?
Yeah.
And I want to pivot us there. I want to be mindful of time because I don't want to sit, right? Like, there's some major concerns up here between climate, housing, healthcare, like the things that we need. And so I'm going to pivot us really quick because I like where you brought that. What was your name?
Richard.
Richard. Thank you, Richard, for bringing up like there are solutions out there. And so I want to take just a couple minutes, turn to the person next to you, talk about what do you want? What do you want for yourself, for your family, for your community? What are some of these things that you want? Yeah, take a couple minutes and talk to the person next to you. Back in a couple minutes. What do you want?
That's what we want is,
Chat amongst yourselves, that's the exercise.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. What do you want for yourself? For the people you care about?
satisfaction of knowing that others are getting the same thing that I got.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm
Yes.
Yeah. I have been thinking about. Fire, and you are. What, but you brought up a really trick. Point, what? Not everybody. Just one. I don't know. So I, some do, so many. However, we're always.
Yes. That is right. Did you hear what you guys wanted? No. Yeah. And there you know, some kind of. And strategy. Remember that story like our big quote was, you'd rather be chopped. Your name This is cost. All right, take 30 more seconds, finish up your thought, and we'll bring it back together. Yeah. 2026. All right, folks, what came up for y'all? What do you want? Meredith, do you have a microphone still?
I do.
Perfect. Perfect, go for it. What do you want? What came up?
So David was just.
Yeah, so.
Thank-
All of these things are critical. You know, the question is, when you have, I'm living at Knife River and Two Harbors, only. So you have a small community with limited resources. You've got state regulations are well meant, but they really keep 2 or 3 people that would open up their houses for childcare that are decent people, but their doors aren't wide enough and they don't have the right height of their stairs and the playground doesn't have a fence. So I think you have to work at the micro level for rural to find solutions. It's gonna be the feds and probably not the state. It's just, it needs to be, what can we do to make it be as safe as possible? Work toward those goals, but if we're just gonna stop it because of those regulations.
Yeah, you want things to make sense for local communities, correct?
Yeah, these are, northern Minnesota is not, Beverly Hills,
Oh, most certainly not.
Just learning that, I've been here for 80 years.
What else came up for you? What do you want?
I would like to just have a larger vision is that we have a society that can nurture a person's attempt to achieve their abilities and develop their own abilities, and that richness of that community can support whatever those abilities and capacities and desires might be. I think that would be the broadest kind of vision that might be.
Did you have that investment when you were, growing up or in your life? Do you feel like you had that investment?
No, I did not. But you don't know. No, I grew up very poor, walking to school, if I wanted to participate in anything. So anyway.
What difference would have it made in your life if you had had that investment?
Say again?
Yeah, if that investment that you're talking about when you're thinking about yourself growing up, if you had had that investment, what difference would that have made for you?
Oh, I don't know. I don't know. I ended up, getting a PhD, so, I don't know what needs to change.
But it does. Yeah, what else came up?
I'm sorry, I was just took a call, but, I think last week in Duluth had a good example
Hmm.
of, civility and government. They had that hearing about Bayfront. And the neighbors that were, again, Safe Bay, I'm so sorry. Thank you, they're right, wow. Anyway, Safe Bay. And I think it was a great example of things working from the bottom up. And even though I not quite have great feelings about those neighbors, at least they use the process rather than patrolling their properties with guns or, vandalizing. I mean, things could be a lot worse.
Yeah.
Things aren't great, but anyway, I think that was a good example.
Yeah.
And again, for me, that's the bottom up, and I don't think it's gonna work from the top down.
So can I reframe that? And I'm gonna repeat back this in a little bit of a different frame, and feel free to correct me. But it sounds like what you want is a democratic process that works at the grassroots level. Is that accurate? You saw that happen in the example of Safe Bay. Is that correct? Would you adjust any parts of that?
It was done in a civil manner.
Mm,
It was done in a civil manner.
yeah.
And I have to say, I'm gonna write a letter to those city councilors that were sitting there, because they were so gracious to those people lost. They were trying to, let them down easy and commending them for working within the system, not just, getting violent.
Yeah, civility. Civility in how we make decisions, like in our democracy and in our communities. What else?
We have a huge element of our community, whether it's down at Cloquet or Moose Lake, all the way up to Harbors and Grand Marais, doing things with groups like Indivisible, 5051, and I can't believe the number of people I am meeting since January, not to mention all the people during the campaign, but incredible numbers of people, even a few Republicans, I'll say that, who are attending and suggesting that this is not what they thought was going to happen. And so I'm grateful for the formation of all of the Indivisible, 5051, and any other groups that are working to defend democracy.
And so it sounds like what you have found really valuable is being in solidarity with other people, working on saying no to the things that you don't want and yes to the things that you do want together. Am I understanding that correctly? And out of that, you want more of that, I would assume, but that's just an assumption.
Making me and everybody else so tired. We can't this as stated, but we didn't have since 1980 to pay attention. That's why I'm working so hard myself right now, is because I was old enough in 1980 to get what Reagan was doing and didn't pay attention. And so I'm trying to make up for that now, and I'm exhausted because this is very hard work.
Yeah,
trying to stay ahead. But yes, solidarity is so it's really wonderful.
So continuing on, I'll extrapolate from that, but just like wanting hope and wanting this to be sustainable. I know Meredith, you were talking about burnout, like getting burned out from it. So how do we make this as sustainable possible so that we can do this collectively? Anything else that came up? Otherwise, I do want to pivot and be mindful of time. But anyone else want to add something else?
The thing that I thought to Meredith, when we first started discussing, came to mind for me is income distribution in our society. Very, very basic stuff. Why is it that childcare is such a crisis? Why is it that two people have to work to keep a household going? Really, really round stuff. So it's not impossible, but it is there as something we ultimately need. The other thing, though, a more recent conversation, the need for what we're doing right now. This creates hope amongst us. This gives us a semblance of the democratic process and how it can work.
Yeah.
So thank you.
Well, thank you. There was a wise person that once told me democracy is in the dialogue. And that's what we get to do today. That's a choice that we can make to do something every day. Practice democracy through dialogue. I want to share a little bit of my vision, which is really rooted in, I think, our economic system, right? And that's coming directly out of my own experience, recognizing that our economic system didn't work for me and my family. And also it worked in some ways. I was somehow able to cobble together kind of the necessary resources to go to school. But I think it can be better. I see that happening in our childcare system right now. We're just like your friend. You have this kind of this broken economic model where parents can't afford to pay more, but they're the primary source of income. Where teachers, early childhood education teachers, are not making enough, right? And often don't have benefits, so they can't stay in the childcare field. And you have providers such as your friends who are like, I can't make the ends meet, right? Because the only choice I have is to increase revenue on parents, and parents can't pay anymore. And so you look at that, and it's like, well, the system is broken, right? Solution, sustained, like fully sustainable public funding, right? We see it with K-12 education. We don't see it through birth of 5. And with what's happening federally right now with those cuts, it's going to take those away even more so and make things like childcare or healthcare or housing even more challenging to find. For you, for me, I know I've been looking for a house for over 3 years and just frankly can't afford it, right? So it's like someday I'll become a homeowner. It has not happened yet, but it will. But what I really want is to recognize that this is not just a resourcing issue, it's a values issue. And so many of the things I value is like, I want every child to know that they are loved. I want each human being to be worthy of dignity and to know that they have worth. I want for people to have what they need, regardless of where they live. If it's in northern Minnesota, far from resources, or what you look like, or how much money you have in your bank account. Like, I want people to be able to have what they need to live. And each and every one of us has an opportunity, right, to take action. And the beauty is, what's going to prevent burnout? Bring more people together, right? That shared burden across people is going to be what makes a difference. So when I talked about previously the ability to make change, we talked about power. Does anyone know what 2 components help to create change where you can build power? Does anyone know that? Beautiful. I love when I can teach people new things. This is fun. One is organized people power. When you think of the civil rights movement, they organized people. They had people information coming together, which is a lot what we're seeing right now. We're seeing people come together and say, this is who we are and this is what we want. The other thing is organized resources. And I'm going to be honest with you. That's what the other side has. They have a lot of money. And so you can either organize people or organize resources. If we don't have enough resources, we organize people. We have conversations. We dialogue with each other and build democracy that way. And so as we leave today, because it's almost 10:15, I want to give you a couple of options for action. One, let's talk. I would love to sit down with anyone here and have a conversation about what matters to you. Two, talk to folks in your neighborhood. Talk to folks you know who are in your network. Ask them what their concerns are. Ask them what they want. Democracy is in the dialogue. Three, we've launched a power path with the parents that I'm working with, organizing around accessible and affordable childcare. We are doing two things over the course of the summer. We're hosting house meetings, or as they like to call them, house parties. They're fun, way more fun than I am. But we're getting together folks across the Northland to talk about things together, bringing people into houses or community spaces to talk about those things. What concerns do you have and what's important to you? And what do you want to do about it? And then we're going to do research visits. We're going to go talk to locally elected officials and learn. The next three things are events. There is a rally on June 16th, Monday at 10 a.m. Up at Congressman Stauber's office about the cuts that are happening. And so if you are available, I will send Meredith more information, but that is